In this video, I'm going to talk about Iran threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz until 2029 and why that's a massive deal for the entire global economy, not just crypto. By the way, I'm Alex, Simex Crypto. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. It means the world to me and to the community. It's free, so if you can, please do it. And let's go straight to the what's going on with Iran and how it affects crypto world. By the way, today is August 11th. Now let's go into the story. So here's what happened. Earlier today, there was actually some optimism in the market. As probably you know, Iran and USA and their allies are in a way, one day they are on the verge to get some peace deal and everything will be fine. The next day they're in total war almost. So currently there was just a moments ago there was some optimism in the market. Reports came out that Iran might cut a deal with Oman to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Oil prices dropped, Bitcoin climbed over $65,000. People were getting hopeful, everything was right? And then just few hours later that optimism completely evaporated. An advisor to Iran's parliamentary speaker Majid Shakiri signaled that Tehran has no intention of negotiating with Trump administration at all before 2029. Their strategy, well, neither war nor a deal, but deliberately managing a state in between, somehow between peace and war, but neither of those. Everything built on denial, ambiguity, and patience. In other words, they're just going to wait Trump to go out of the office and then they will try to negotiate with the new president. As we all know, Trump is a tough negotiator, and especially because he changes his mind quite often. Now, I should mention that Shakiri is an advisor, not a head of a state, so this isn't an official declaration, but still it's a very important person in Iran. But markets don't wait for formal confirmation. As you know, they price the direction of travel, and the direction went from Hormuz might reopen to Hormuz stays shut for another 2.5 years in a single session. That's what it translates to the crypto world, and of course everything goes south. And to make things even worse, President Trump demanded 50 years of compensation from Iran for the damages. He said, and I'm quoting here, "We're going to ask for money for the damage that they have done over a 50-year period." And of course, that basically killed any hope of a deal. Oil jumped back to $89 a barrel, more than 12% above last week's low. In fact, Brent crude briefly touched a $90 a barrel for the first time in 2 weeks. So things are not looking good. Now, what makes this situation different from other geopolitical tensions? Well, the Strait of Hormuz is very important in the world. It is the world's busiest oil checkpoint, I would say. About 21 million barrels of oil pass through it every day, 21 million barrels. So that's roughly 21% of global petroleum consumption, which is huge. So Iran threats to keep it closed until 2029, and that will represent one of the most sustained disruptions to global energy in decades. And I don't think it's even a temporary problem. That's a multi-year problem. And here's how the chain works. Oil spikes, that feeds into inflation concerns. Higher inflation pushes out rate cut expectations. And the market that has spent this year hoping for easier financial conditions treats the late cuts as a direct hit to risk assets. And here is the crypto. Bitcoin sits at the far end of the chain, and that's why a Middle East headline can move a decentralized asset that has nothing to do with the Middle East. And here's another interesting thing. US has actually deployed over 20 warships to enforce a naval blockade of Iran. US Central Command said that they have redirected 55 commercial vessels, disabled 2 and boarded 2 others just on August 9th. On the other side, Iran said the strait won't reopen until the US lifts their blockade. The Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson put it bluntly like this: as long as the US naval blockade continues, the necessary conditions for the reopening of the Strait of the Hormuz do not exist. Now what I want to give you is the full picture of Iran's demands, because they're actually pretty extreme, at least from my opinion. Iran's Supreme National Security Council, that's the Politburo, like, that makes the big decisions, says the strait won't open until the United States corrects its behavior. And the United States are thinking of themselves as the strongest in the world. So when you tell to the strongest in the world, at least that he believes that he is the strongest in the world, to correct its behavior, it doesn't go that way. So what that means, they want the US to never threaten Iran again, so they can feel peace, or they can feel some ease, or get time to prepare for another war, or whatever they want. And permanently, they want permanently to end the war and its regional proxies. They also want to lift the naval blockade, withdraw its military from the entire area around. And on top of that, they're demanding full compensation for all damage Iran sustained in the 2025 strikes and 2026 war. So the lifting of all sanctions and the unconditional release of all frozen Iranian assets. And of course, it's not going to happen, definitely not under a Trump administration. So Israeli journalist Barak Ravid, who covers this stuff very closely and is famous for, I would say, knowing what's going on, said that these are demands that clearly US cannot even accept. So both sides are deeply dug in, like Russia and Ukraine on the other side. Neither wants to back down. Neither believe maybe that they won't win, but at least that they won't lose. And let me tell you what this actually looks like on the ground. Well, only a handful of oil tankers have navigated the Strait of Hormuz since the weekend. Before the war, about 130 ships sailed through the waterway every single day. And commercial shipping has been brought to a near standstill, almost nothing. So many ships are cloaking their identity to avoid being detected, but this isn't just, I would say, a long-term solution. Now let's talk about what this means for Bitcoin specifically, or crypto. Bitcoin fell 2.3% to around $63,993 on the Binance USDT market. Before, it was even 65,250 earlier in the session. And of course, then sellers pushed it all the way down. Right now, it's trading between 63,900 and 64. On the other side, Ethereum is down about 2% to 1,870. Solana is off about 0.4%, and it is now at $75.91. So total crypto market cap fell about 0.91% to 2.26 trillion. So more than $50 million in long position got liquidated within an hour. So if you were betting on Bitcoin going up, unfortunately you got burned. And on the derivative sides, open interest in Bitcoin futures dropped as leverage positions were liquidated and funding rates turned slightly negative, which of course sometimes points to short-term oversold conditions. So the market is deleveraging, not panicking yet, but if this continues, we could have a problem. There are some analysts that are saying that now we're watching 63 to 63,500 as the immediate support zone. A break below that could open the door to test even 60,000 psychological level. On the upside, resistance is near 65,500. You tried, I think, 5 times to break it. We didn't succeed. And with the CPI report coming out tomorrow, this could get even more volatile. So what's the bottom line of all that? Well, if you're holding crypto, you need to understand the geopolitics are now in a major factor in price action. The Strait of Hormuz isn't just an oil story or some story that is happening far away. It is something that is touching all of us in all kind of ways. So this isn't going away anytime soon, at least by my opinion. By the way, make sure you subscribe to my channel. It means a lot to me. If you got any value out of this video, press a like and I'll see you in the new video.